Thank you. Chairman Wiggum, Vice Chairwoman John, Ranking Member Kelly, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present my testimony regarding Convention of States. I am a homeschooling mom of 3 crazy little boys from Powell, Ohio, House District 67. Prior to staying home with my children, I was an apparel buyer for Fortune 500 companies in New York City and Boston. Balance is a word used by the framers of our Constitution. Balance between 3 branches of government, balance between the states and the federal government, balance between people and government. Balance means to be in a state of equilibrium. Today, however, we live in a state of perpetual imbalance. Take, for example, regulations. According to regulations.gov, there are over 220 federal agencies, and in 2019, those agencies passed almost 3,000 regulations, while Congress passed 105 laws. Federal regulations cost us $2 trillion annually and affect each of us. Employers pay almost $10,000 per employee to comply with regulations. Regulatory costs at the state, local, and federal level add over 30% to the cost of a new home. With each bill passed by Congress, each executive order cast, we continue to pile on more and more regulations. So how do we restore the balance? Congress could restore balance, but try getting a majority of Congress to agree on anything, let alone diminishing the power of the federal government. How many years have we heard Congress discuss term limits? The Heritage Foundation called for congressional term limits in an article in 1994, and here we are in 2022, still talking about term limits. No one in a position of power ever wants to decrease their power voluntarily. So we cannot hold our breath for Congress. What about the judicial branch? The Supreme Court has no formal powers stated in the Constitution to enforce their rulings. We rely solely on the President and Congress's willingness to obey the ruling. But what happens if one day they just decide they don't? In 2021, the executive branch bypassed Congress and implemented a moratorium on evictions through the CDC. The Supreme Court struck down the CDC's moratorium on rent in June, and the executive branch ignored the ruling, extending the moratorium. In August, the Supreme Court ruled again, and the executive branch reluctantly stepped aside. A narrow win for private property rights. But what about the next time? What happens when the branches that were created to protect our freedoms begin to prey on our freedoms? What happens when we become the prey and our own government grows into a predator? The framers knew that this could happen one day, and so they created Article 5. Article 5 has the power to end federal usurpations and place constraints on an out-of-control government. Article 5 is a reboot, a way and a restoration back to balance and control given to the people and the states and not a central government. I hope that you too will support giving power back to the people and yourselves as state legislators by passing HJR 1 in this committee and sending it to the House for a full vote. Thank you so much for your service to Ohio and for allowing me the opportunity to share with you my testimony.